Ahem.
Okay, anybody got the preview? You see it?
I've seen it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So you're still doing your testings?
I mean, we're live. You can talk about whatever.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk casually for a little bit, and then once we're all confirmed to be going 100%, then I'll actually do legit introduction. So like I was saying, so each week, one of us is going to take turns as the curator. The only real rule about being a curator is that you have to have been on at least one episode, and then you can curate. That's really the only rule. That, and like I said, obviously be nice to people with your curation choices. I'm going to be the curator for this week, and then next week... So, I'm going to be the curator for... technically, I came up with the idea for this week.
Space Odyssey is written as Gregorian chants.
This week, we're going to be reviewing the Dead language in its entirety. Now, about that ending... Oh, jeez. When you have a director that honestly says, if anyone can figure out the ending of this movie, I failed at my job, that's not fair. That's just not fair.
I don't know. I was just talking about this in a literature class recently, that we all have the desire to make a text mean and to make it work and symbolize something for us instead of just letting it exist.
Right.
And a lot of people have problems with stuff that they can't
find out what it means.
Yeah, can't form into some kind of meaning.
That's understandable.
At the same time, I suppose it also leaves just that room for interpretation that is inevitable anyway, and so, maybe it is a good way to go.
Yes, but I like to believe that, but as a creator, I am interested in what a creator's intention is, even if I don't agree with it. For instance, there is something strange, though, about having a creator who refuses to acknowledge what his meaning is, or refuses to acknowledge that there even is a meaning. Yeah. Because I think absurdity for the sake of absurdity can be problematic in that sense. 2001 is an interesting case, though, because as everybody knows, despite his talents, Kubrick is kind of nuts. So, I mean, that does play into that a little bit.
I think that's kind of why I like his movies.
Fair enough. He is, that's just something to be said even about the entertainment medium in general. In the world of art, the most creative people aren't usually known as being the most sane. Every other industry has their crazed, psychotic mastermind. Film and video games are slowly finding theirs.
Slowly, I don't know.
Oh, everybody just seemed to wait for the same pause.
Yes.
Nobody wants
to bring
take
up
advantage of it.
what's going on with it. I'm just bringing up what's been going on with Konami and all that, Silent Hills and Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, I've been hearing all about that.
I haven't even played that much Silent Hills. I played Silent Hills recently. I played Silent Hill 2 recently.
E.T.
And it just oozes with atmosphere. I barely got anywhere into the game, not even to the point where it's scary. I literally found the first enemy and had the controller kind of freak out. Couldn't figure out what to do, and I died. But, even just walking through the paths blew my mind.
Word. Alright, well... hang on a second. I'm getting, buffering on my stream.
Zach, are you Trumpet Player 3?
No.
Oh, that's
I'm
somebody
not.
else who's joined us.
That's Chris. Hey, Chris! Yeah.
Yay, we have fans.
Yes.
Fan.
You have a
At least
viewer.
have one, probably two visitors.
You know, actually, it's the
I'm
weirdest thing ever.
seeing at least-
It's become the weirdest thing ever. Like, actually, at conventions, I'm starting to get to the point I have a reputation. Like, people like recognize my table and they want more. Like, the idea of like actually shooting the same cosplayer in the third costume, like that stuff's starting to happen to me now. Like I said before, like Albert, that guy that was on us for the last episode, I have shot him in 3 different cosplays, and he's bought photos to every single one. You know, that stuff's happening now, and it's weird.
Service.
Apparently. I mean, I don't really have that much competition, like, directly in what I do, and that helps. And I've gotten to the point now where just this last con, I've actually gotten the opportunity to shoot a couple of professional cosplayers from the World Cosplay Summit that took place there. Just phenomenal people. And it just blew my mind to think that, like, some of these people wanted to get their photos from me.
See what you got going on. It's a brand. You got a brand going for you,
Yep.
kid.
I mean, the if nothing else, I mean, the cosplay stuff kind of pays the bills and helps me float the company name around to do all this other stuff with. And the website gives me a cool place to just put it all and, like, actually be able to let people see the almost, like, 20,000 photos I've taken in the last year.
To finally do the things that you want.
Yeah. I mean, the Batman book's a big part of that too, but the cosplay stuff's a little bit easier to make money with. At least until Batman takes off. Like, one thing I'm hoping on, and, like, don't get me wrong, I know this is a long shot. I actually I know who to contact. I think this guy is Steve Wilkinson, I think is his name, is the guy that manages people's requests to be on Fat Man on Batman. And he has had, like, a Kickstarter guy on there before. Like, he has had he's had at least 1 or 2 non-official people on there. Like, the guy that it was the guy who did a documentary about people that, like, use Batman and, like, use the suit to, like, go to hospitals and stuff. And I'm sure I'm not, like, technically I'm not exactly that, but, like, it shows he has got, like, non-Warner Brothers people, you know, non-DC people on the show before. And, like, it would do wonders for me to get him on, to get on there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's the million
cool.
though.
Take the opportunities when they
Absolutely. I've already got a couple other podcasts I'm going to be on pretty soon. I think History of Bad Ideas I'm going to be on. 7 Days a Geek I'm going to be on. Chances are I'll be on Snake Oil again.
come. A bird of prey. Hello.
Hello.
Hello there.
Okay, I think we might as well get going.
All right. Is everybody on? Everything working and all that?
It's all on. I have flipped all the switches to go. The flux capacitor is warm and running.
Damn. Even the third switch.
Yeah, even the third switch. It's turned up to 11.
All right. Before we start, I just have to say that, like, I think the flux capacitor is, like, the greatest pseudoscience joke ever made.
Oh,
because
it is entirely.
Because it's not only pseudoscience, but it's actually something that's in every single car.
Hello,
like,
fresh
they just
maniac.
took a car part that sounded scientific and made it. We need a new flux capacitor. That car has one. Like, that's just.
We've all got them, but it makes it all sound special.
All right.
Every car's a snowflake.
Is everybody
Shall
ready
we?
to go?
I believe
We're ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Podcast beginning in 5, 4, 3, 2,
Going.
1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first episode of Deadmen Tell No Tales. It is a curation podcast with a rotating crew of people who will now introduce themselves. Dan, why don't we start with you?
I'm Dan. I'm playing the game.
Second week in a row, he's going to be that guy.
As far as
Everybody
you can tell,
knows that guy.
I appear to be to Ken's right. My name is Josh, and I'm Dan's brother. unfortunately not taking part in the gameplay.
I don't say.
And last but not least,
Hi, I'm Zach. I play a fair amount of games, and that's what I do. I just play games.
we got some great intros this week.
That is my title forever and always.
This is probably the most accurate intro that we've ever done.
Hey,
you know?
everybody, we're a bunch of guys who like things. Want to sit around and watch us talk about it for a couple hours?
That's all we know.
Zach
Heisman, talking about
player of games.
Excellent. That will go perfectly on the label someday.
All
So,
right.
players.
Ken.
So to get started here, like as we said a second ago, Deadmen Tell All Tales is a brand new podcast from Deadmen Inc. Productions, which is a curation podcast where we're going to talk about our favorites of different things, recommend some stuff to our audience and to ourselves, and also each week, starting after this one, each of us is going to take a turn as the curator and pick out a piece of content for the rest of us to watch and review and talk about when we come back next week. This week, our topic is going to be, our podcast is called One More Try, a discussion of super difficult but super fun games, and talking about each of us giving a quick example of a game we think does difficulty the best. So, Dan, since you've actually got yours running on the stream right now, why don't we let you start?
Yeah, this is Dust Force. It's a game that I don't think enough people play. Really, for anyone interested in platformers, and especially platformers with the capacity to speedrun them, this is, like, tops. And I'm really surprised that, like, not a lot of people talk about this game. I mean, it's kind of been getting a little bit more attention recently, or maybe just I've finally been hearing about it. But, yeah, it feels really great. The platforming is incredibly tight. The level design is really thoughtful. It's got that fantastic feeling of empowerment that you find in like good platformers like the Prince of Persia series, like Mario series. At every moment in the game, it feels like you're totally in control, as is like all the finesse that you put into it. So, you know, I think that's probably kind of a common element that most people would look for in appropriate game difficulty is the constant feeling of empowerment, no matter how difficult the game is. The difference between being frustrated in the difficulty and feeling encouraged to go on is just knowing that you're in full control, and that if you just master it, you'll be able to get through something difficult.
Absolutely. Josh, why don't we let you go next?
Okay. I suppose I haven't had a whole lot of time to consider my options, but one that, after looking through some games that I played not too long ago, I definitely have a fondness for, is Rogue Legacy. Excuse me. So, I suppose how best to phrase it. Rogue Legacy is a roguelike game wherein you are a particular part of a line of thieves, essentially, trying to loot this castle that changes itself every time you come to it. However, castle, along with having treasure, has tons of enemies, and enemies get progressively harder as you go. It provides, I think, part of the challenge which I find so rewarding is the fact that, kind of like, I guess I could compare somewhat to the somewhat compared to the Souls games. You have a particular amount of money that you're able to get at one point, and if you every time that you die, you are, in order to continue, you are forced to give up, I believe it's 90% of the gold that you earn with every run, and it makes it, and doing so makes it very difficult to actually get the various power-ups that you want while still trying to advance. So obviously an element comes down to maybe farming some money to actually get yourself up, but at the same time, it's not entirely necessary, because I've heard of some people, I believe it was 21 hours to complete this game, and that was a fair amount of time because I was pretty desperate and hoping to get all the powers which would prevent me from dying, and it worked out in the end. But I've heard of people who have completed this game in like 6 hours before, just because they know how to play it well and how to like what sections of levels to manipulate well enough. So I suppose it manages difficulty well in that if you're fairly new to roguelikes and the difficulty that they present, then it gives you the opportunity to overcome that difficulty. But at the same time, if you are looking for a sort of speedrun experience, like Dan was saying, then Rogue Legacy gives you the opportunity as well. It all comes down to the player and their preference. I enjoyed the experience of it as well. There's not an especially deep story, but what there is of it and what you figure out for yourself was definitely enjoyable.
Zach, why don't we let you go next?
Yeah. All right. If I might make a note about Rogue Legacy, I've seen it done in 3 generations.
Seriously?
Holy cow! That is like.
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's kind of why I like that game. Is because it's it's one of those games that's like, it's really crazy difficult to beat that game without many power-ups, but it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be really good and get a really lucky run.
Yes. Anyway, the game I've chosen is FTL, or Faster Than Light. Another,
Oh, I love FTL.
another roguelike game set in a sci-fi universe. You are the last of the Federation in an attempt to bring a message that may end the war against the winning rebellion to the end of the play area thing. Galaxy, I guess. Throughout your journey, you'll encounter several random encounters, enemy ships, power up your ship with several weapons. Wish I was a bit more prepared. But,
Yeah, no, it's like it's like you're playing Captain Picard in Star Trek, and basically you have like this little ship that you try to like upgrade and outfit with people, and you like take it through these different battles, or it's kind of like Oregon Trail in space.
Yes.
Oh.
I've actually got a theory about this game. In my theory, you are actually playing as the ship. Based on most of the losing conditions, it makes sense that you're the ship's AI. The ability to pause time. You only die if all your crew members are gone, and since no crew member is essential, like any of the crew member can die no matter what role
Individually,
they could take.
yeah.
You can't be any of those guys, clearly. It's just, I'd go into more detail if I was a bit more prepared.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't played as
No,
much
that's great.
FTL, but I think like it feeds on a sense of consequence-driven difficulty, in the sense that like it's built on the idea that the game forces you to make certain decisions that you might not immediately see the consequences of, but your consequences carry a large amount of weight that makes it so that it's easy, even though it's still not going to make things incredibly easy when you do die. It's good that the game does kind of let you know, like, oh, that's where I messed up, and helps you to get a little bit better at it.
And it does deal a lot with like risk and reward too. A lot of the random events have several different outcomes based on what you choose, or even when you make a choice. So those have several outcomes as well.
Yeah, I think that game actually does the I guess the choice-based like system, and actually integrates it into the game really well, and that like a lot of resources are really scarce, and whenever you obtain anything, whatever you decide to put them in is really going to impact the rest of your run. So it can also like depend on which opportunities arise, will like force you to come up with different strategies, just kind of like on the fly, to deal with, or like come up with the most appropriate use of like the things that you can obtain. And I really enjoy that, and sometimes it's like, okay, do I hang on to this because it's going to benefit me right now? Or, do I hang on to this for a little bit just in case, like, some encounter I come up to is going to need this so that I can get out of it?
I mean, my beams do a lot of damage, but they can't do anything against these shields. That type of thing.
Very nice.
Yeah, and quite honestly, like, I don't know, one of the most satisfying parts about that game is managing your ship not as like just like this little battle cruiser type thing, but as a full environment. In that, like, one of the strategies in dealing with enemies can be if somebody's beamed themselves into another room, you just lock them in there and open up the doors to space, and you just kind of like suffocate them that way. Or like if you've got fires going through your building, maybe you have to like get everybody to move into the front of the ship and then like close everything out and just let the fire air out, or just different things like that. It adds like that much more, I don't know, like really satisfying strategic element to the game.
You seem a bit too eager to be letting the air out of the ship, Dan.
We've got oxygen
You know what?
systems.
I just let away my strategy. Okay, pro tip.
It's just,
let all the air out always.
I think a lot
So if
of
ever
it
there is a
built-
competitive FTL, we all know how to defeat Dan.
So I think where that comes from, though, is because of the fact that it gives you the options to build in a lot of those more unconventional methods. It leads towards this feeling of being able to like outsmart the game, even though technically you aren't. But it's like the more unconventional way you come up to solve the problem, the more you think that you're acting smarter than the game is, which is a satisfying feeling in difficulty.
For example, I take the stealth ship almost every time, and it's got the ability to tell you where other enemy ships are, or other ships are, and normally use that to avoid them. I just target all of them and destroy every single ship I can.
So you're a ninja.
Pretty much.
He's a ninja ship.
Space Ninja.
Yeah, I can get down with that. Space Ninjas that isn't like action packed. It's I can get down
Coming
with it.
soon to theaters.
It's
faster than light.
Space Ninja,
Era
but
of the
with,
Space Ninja.
Ken, what about you? What's your game on the radar? Difficulty?
I debated this one for quite a bit, but ultimately I feel like the game that I think in several ways captures the idea of doing great difficulty is the Hotline Miami series. The genre of these is very unconventional. Essentially, it is a top-down stealth game set in the era of like 80s Scarface gangsters. But once you get into the second game, it goes even beyond that. Essentially, how the game...
I wouldn't say it's a stealth game exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite call it stealth.
It's a stealth game in the sense that you enter an environment with enemies that don't know where you are and only see you when you're acting to avoid them. That kind
Only
of thing.
if you're going silent with knives or bats or something, because if you have a gun, they will find you, and they will find you quickly.
Yes, but even then, like, there is still a strategic stealth-style element to how you use that. You cannot, even if you have the best gun in the game, you can't just Rambo through the level and kill everything, or else you're going to die a lot. Especially when you get into the second game, when they actually adjust the game to incorporate guns better into the game. There's less
I have yet to play the
luring with
second.
guns and that kind of thing. Anyway, but like the main mechanic of the game that makes the difficulty so fascinating is that it's not like a one-hit kill system, but melee weapons, with the exception of very specific enemies, are all one-hit kill to you and your opponents. And you're placed into these multi-level grid environments where you get to, since you're looking from a top-down view, you get to see the enemies through the walls before they see you. You can tell where there's a window that you can shoot through, but they can shoot back, or there's a solid wall, hit people with doors. From the get-go, your relationship with the game in its difficulty is based on the fact that you have more information than they do. And that's fascinating to me. The thing that I like about it is that when you start at each level, it alters a little bit depending on what game you're in or what level you're in. But you're given a selection of masks, all of them themed after animals, and the masks can have drastically different benefits and like pros and cons as far as strategically beating a level. But the problem is you're locked into that mask the entire building or the entire level you're set in. So when you can beat up through a floor, and like level 1, the dog mask is fantastic, but then you get to level 2 and the dog mask is like a big liability. And you figure that stuff out as you go. So it's really difficult to exploit the mask system, but it's really fun to use. And they range from anything from starting with a, there's one of them, the elephant mask gives you extra health. The dog mask makes it so dogs in levels don't attack you. One of them gives you extra ammo drops. And then when you get into the second game, you actually get the masks are even completely changing the game mechanics. Where there's one of them, you actually play a Hotline Miami level with 2 people at once with different, what's the word? With different mechanics, because one of them holds a chainsaw and the other one shoots guns. Or there's a guy who actually dual wields, and you can like angle your shots at diagonals and kill 2 guys down 2 hallways at the same time. Like the but on top of that, the game does an incredible job of always being difficult and not in the same way. Like the game, I never get to the point where I feel like I'm too good at this game and the game's not fun anymore because I'm too good at it. Like the difficulty curve on these games is fantastic. The music is just unbelievably amazing, and half the time, like it's what stops you from rage quitting is the idea that you just want to hear more of these awesome songs, and the fact that it's an immediate revival when you die is so compelling too, because it may seem like death has no consequence, but it lets them make the levels that much harder, because you can try as many times as you want, but at the end of the day, you have to do it in one go. And the fact that when you get frustrated and you relapse that quickly, it makes you just want to just run in there angry and start shooting stuff, and then you die, and you're still angry, and you run in and you die, and you run in and you die. And it forces you, not in its gameplay, but in its mechanics, to have to sit there for a minute, take a deep breath, and use your brain to play it. But the game doesn't stop and give you time to think. It lets you learn that you need to think. It's all those little nuances that go into this game that I think is one of the best difficult games out there.
Yeah, sorry, chat, for just a minute. Yep, we're just talking about games in general. Dust Force is here, just kind of something to watch with it. If anybody hasn't played this game yet, I'd highly recommend it. I think more people need to give this a shot. But yeah, sorry, I'm not quite at the point of like being impressive at this game. As much as I love it, I've completed most levels. I've heard of people who have sunk like 1,500 hours into this game.
Holy crap!
Just trying to perfect levels. Yeah, no. One of the things that I always enjoy about the Hotline Miami games is that somebody might consider those to have like rage quit difficulty or something like that, but your deaths are so quick and the game just restarts so quickly that there's almost no time to really get frustrated over what just happened, and you just keep on playing the game. And that's kind of a big deal for me in video games in general. It's one of the reasons that I really like what Rayman Legends did with platformers, where as soon as you die, you're just back into the game. There's really there's hardly any punishment outside of just having to go back and actually complete the challenge.
Yeah, and on top of that, it creates this atmosphere of encouraging the experimentation that is really the way to beat these levels. The idea that there is no one way you have to beat a level, especially in later games when your mechanics between masks are so different. Your strategy is like completely different. Like literally the level I'm on right now, two of my choices for masks, or the equivalent of, is one who has a guy who starts with dual machine guns that I can point in any direction if I'm careful, and another one which gives me brass knuckles, which makes it so I can kill any enemy punched in one hit, but I can't pick up any weapons. So you have to beat the whole thing melee, but everything dies in one hit. So your strategies for those two are unbelievably different, and almost feels like it just extends the replay value of the game so much to say, all right, I beat this, but can I actually figure out how to beat this thing with the brass knuckles, or vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
I think, in my experience...
Talk about masks reminds me of Kid Chameleon.
Interesting.
Oh, man. I spent so much time with that one.
Love that game. That game is amazing.
No, I think, like, I've only ever played through the first Hotline Miami. I have yet to play the second one. And in my experience, what did I get really good with? I got good with the mask that allows you to kill enemies with doors, because I was all...
It's my default.
I was all about the waiting game, and like, okay, here he comes, I got this. And then, I mean, it would take a lot of practice, a lot of plotting, but it was efficient, and it was definitely my favorite go-to in the first game. And hearing about these different ways that they're setting up the second, yeah, it's got me interested. I'll get to it eventually.
There's it's the style of the levels is different, where there is still the mask levels. There's some other stuff that doesn't rely as much on the masks, like you're playing as multiple protagonists all throughout the game. Like, I can't remember how many, but quite a few of them. Like, you're following a story that's like she jumping like back and forth like crazy, and half of it's dream world, half of it's, and some of it they actually even break the story mechanics into the game. Like, I'll say this one without spoilers because I won't be able to say anything about his character, but you're playing as a character who's not a killer in a level. And the game doesn't tell you, but you notice the nuances. When you hit somebody with a baseball bat, they don't die. They like collapse, writhing in pain. And if you knock somebody over and you have to kill them on the floor with a baseball bat, unless you specifically tell the game to let go, the screen will turn red and you'll just bash this guy's face into oblivion in some kind of strange adrenaline rush. And if you pick up a gun, he freaks out and unloads it and just destroys it, and you can't use it. And the game doesn't tell you these things. You have to figure out what they are and why they're that way. And I like that. It makes the levels so much more difficult, because they're levels that are technically designed for that, but oh my goodness, is it frustrating to like see a gun in front of you, and know you can't use it. There's also levels that are like set in Vietnam. No, not Vietnam, but it's like I think it's a war in Hawaii, and you're playing as a soldier in these levels, killing other soldiers, and you get a weapon when you start that you can choose if you want to do it with a machine gun or a shotgun or whatever. But you actually have to find ammo, and you can toggle between that and a knife. So you have a melee with you all the time, but those levels are so much more aggressive, and there's so many more guys with guns that it compensates for the fact that you're, supposed to have a gun with you all the time. There's a lot of stuff like that in the second one, like improved, like for the people out there that like, there's still a lot of people out there that are always like, oh, well, Hotline Miami 2 is just more Hotline Miami 1, and I'm like, and your problem with that is?
I noticed a lot of people did that when it first came out.
It does feel like a true sequel. It started as an expansion, as an expand-alone, but they literally felt like they added so much content to it, it merited a full $15 release. And I do think it does. Like, I literally love the music so much, I bought the entire soundtrack on vinyl.
On vinyl?
On vinyl.
Wow. I don't think
recently
too
bought
many
a
games
record
actually
player.
do that. Very nice. Well, okay, like, I suppose the thing about the music with that game, like, it really depends on the person, I guess. I mean, it's extremely fitting. Like, the game itself is incredibly psychedelic and very oddball, but the music for it just fits in with it so well, just because it's got that odd mix of like, how to describe, like distorted synthesizers, weird just like vocal tones going on in the background, and all of that sort of thing. I guess it kind of serves to like, I wouldn't say augment the game, but like maybe improve upon it, just to give that feeling of atmosphere even more. And
yeah,
maybe that's like, I'd say like that would be, that's probably the only reason I wouldn't like personally get the entirety of the soundtrack just for, you know, everyday listenings, because it needs that sort of environment, that playing to go along with it, in my opinion.
I hear you. I mean, I'm the opposite. I literally listen to it in my car, but that's just me. So now that we've discussed each of our individuals, those of you guys in the chat, feel free to bring up what you think some of your favorite super difficult games are. We'll talk about them a little bit, but let's talk about some of the different ways that people use difficulty in games, because it's like, it used to be where like you could just say super hard games was kind of like its own genre, but now we're actually starting to see like subgenres of the way that people define difficulty or the ways that people use it. Like, for instance, if we start out from the get-go with something like what's the name of this game again?
Dust Wars.
Dust Wars. That's what that. Anyway, Force. That was it. So if you start with something like that, it's it's built on this idea of speedrun based difficulty. So like, what are you guys' favorite games kind of in that category of like, even if it's something you play, but something you like enjoy watching speedrun?
Oh boy.
Generally for me, it's like Mario 3. Basically, anytime I play that game, at this point, I just turn it on and play it until I die. And it'll usually, by now, I think I can get through like, I don't know, like half the game before I die or something like that. I don't usually do like any kind of like official speedrun thing, just because I'm not very good at that. But there are games that I just kind of get to the point of like having a lot of, I don't know, built muscle dexterity, and just kind of like a lot of like filed away ins and outs of like secrets and little ways to like make shortcuts through the game. So it's kind of stuff like that that I like in terms of like, I don't know, speedrunning, things that you can kind of sit down and then just spend a lot of time perfecting your approaches at these like different levels and different runs.
Yeah, we actually, Dan and I... sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Oh, it was you first.
Okay. Dan and I were actually talking with a friend of ours recently about this sort of thing, specifically about the original Sonic the Hedgehog games, like the first 3 that were made for the Genesis, and then like CD and the early ones when they were still 2D, and how the point of those games is not that they are supposed to be the Mario like platforming specialty. No, it's a game for speedruns. That is the point of it. Like while the stages are constructed to be just so huge, but that's the reason, is because they provide all these different ways for people to speedrun them. Obviously, some people find optimal ways, but then some people think that they can challenge it by going a different route. And I found it interesting because, we were just talking. It's like we thought of it that like Sonic has been the contrast to Mario for the Sega for the longest time, and everyone thought, okay, yeah, it's a platformer, and it is more or less. But more importantly, it is that speed game. It is, the people that, okay, pardon me, but of course I want to be fast. Gotta go fast. And yeah, if you can actually figure out how to speed run those games, at one point, like, Dan and I knew, I want to say, was it Sonic 2 or 3 that we knew, like, pretty well, like, several levels?
I was always pretty good at 3.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was 3. Like, I've preferred 3 in the past. I haven't played in a while, but yeah, I'd love to get back to that at some point and maybe even try my hand at it. I don't know if I'll actually devote a ton of time to it, but have some fun.
Like I recently.
But that's like one of the reasons that I really enjoy Rayman Legends, because they keep on putting out a lot of like a lot of little bite-sized challenges that just really encourage replayability of like just certain scenarios and like getting really good at certain sections of the game. Like one of the ones that shows up a lot is basically just like this ongoing tower that you're constantly running up, and then it's just kind of like see how long you can go and things like that. And I love that stuff like that's kind of coming around in platformers, or it's something to kind of encourage the perfection of the approach. And you see that a lot in Rayman Legends and in Dust Force, and I think it's great. I think it's really fun.
Well, we're on this subject of like speedruns and execution type games. I'd like to bring up Pac-Man Championship Edition, or those series of games.
All right.
Really?
Yeah. Have any of you actually seen any of the Championship Edition games?
I've seen the games. I haven't seen anyone like speedrun them, but I've seen the games.
The Championship Edition is like basically a score attack against like leaderboards and stuff. It's a fast game. It's just all about the execution and speedrunning, and it's just a test against how good you are at the game. I just love it.
How's it different from the normal Pac-Man stuff? Or, all the other Pac-Man stuff.
It's rather hard to explain. There are several different game modes. The main difference is you've got like a trail of ghosts following you, and you go around waking up sleeping ghosts to add to that trail, and you can get massive combos for eating like all the ghosts at once. And it's also the game speed like ramps up over time too, which is insanely difficult at times.
Yeah, no, that sounds cool. It's also kind of neat to see things that like have some kind of like really simple approach, and then it just focuses on becoming really familiar with like really basic mechanics, and just focusing your attention on getting better at the game instead of like becoming just more familiar with all these different types of things you can do with it. Which is again why I think stuff like that, or just like basic platformers and things like this, are a really good opportunity for those little like score-based and just like small trial-based challenges.
Absolutely.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Well, I think too that that's interesting about speedrunning style games. I like the idea that it's encouraging us more and more to view gaming and just games in general in sort of a different light, as far as like we're getting to the point now when I think the biggest step for us in gaming in general, moving on to stuff like film and stuff like that, is just the little steps it takes to just view gaming in any way outside of just playing it exactly as intended. And whether that be, competitive play, or whether that be speedrunning, or like just anything out of the out of the box definition of how a game is played, and embracing that. And I think more and more with things, like how the internet has gotten big, or how there's like speedrunning has done so much for like charity events, or like the Games Done Quick series, or like it's in a way speedrunning was kind of the birth of the Let's Play scene. Or at least that was one of the first ways that people actually saw, the context of it being entertaining to watch somebody else playing a video game. I remember on X-Play back in the day, for those of you guys who remember that was a thing, it was kind of interesting. They had a show during their E3 coverage where there was a guy trying to beat the Super Mario 64 100% record. And in the bottom right corner of the screen, this had the stream of the guy going through to try to beat the record. And like half the time, like I didn't even think at that point, like I could barely even comprehend the idea of getting 120 stars, let alone getting it as fast as humanly possible.
What was I just thinking about?
Tangent, but I watched a speedrun of Psychonauts with all the developers of the game, which was highly entertaining. Everybody should go check it out.
Yes.
It's just
I
the guy playing it trying to break it the entire time.
And meanwhile, the entirety of the Double Fine team who made it is watching and giving advice. Like, the guy knows everything that's going on, but they're providing the chatter in the background. It's pretty entertaining. But yeah, one thing I actually just thought of, and it's a little bit different, I suppose, and I was seeing it just the other night, is because some people have taken it upon themselves to take challenges in some games to as quickly as they can. Like, I was watching some guys play Super Smash Bros. Melee, and while they were waiting for a match to come on, one guy was doing the target run little mini game that they have in the extras, and one guy, like, he had perfected the method of just how to hit every target, and did it all within, it was like 3.8 seconds.
I seen the Link one for sure. I remember that one.
Yeah, that was, well, like, it was, I think the guy was trying, like, I don't know if Link is the popular one, but he was doing it with Link, and I don't know if it was the same guy, but I think he was trying to beat that guy's record, and just watching him, just like, oh my god, how do you do this? I mean, I remember, like, you know, with Melee, it was never, for me, about doing those things. I mean, they're fun, and it was, you know, if you wanted to be the hardcore, the completionist, then there you go. But I just find it interesting that people are still dedicating themselves to stuff like even that.
Well, people forget in Smash Brothers 1, you had to do all the basic 8 in order to unlock Luigi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And my goodness, were some of those difficult. Like, it was like I got through most of them. There's like 3 of them that would just drive you to just madness. It was like Yoshi's, Jigglypuff's, and there's one other one that is just ungodly difficult.
Kirby's?
I think it's Kirby's.
Hmm. Oh, that's interesting.
Because I believe
isn't
two
floaties.
Is it what?
Isn't Jigglypuff unlockable?
Yeah.
Not one of the
Right,
original.
no, yeah, it's Kirby's is the difficult one. But Jigglypuff's, if you wanted to do them all, is still entirely impossible.
That's curious, too, considering that they're the 2 floaties. You would think that they have the most ability to do it.
Oh, unless they compensate for it and decide to be really mean about it. Which they did.
Of course.
Yeah, it's all about learning the strategies behind the courses, too. That's a lot of what a lot of speedrunning is about.
So, if we're going to kind of use each of our different choices as a stepping off point, why don't we go ahead and go with Rogue Legacy next and talk about rogue elements and how they're used in game difficulty. So for those of you guys who aren't familiar, rogue elements mainly refers to the idea of having procedural generation in some form being a major element in your game design. Now, specifically, roguelike has a couple of other elements that kind of go along with that, but the core of it is the idea that you go into a game, and every time you play the game, the actual levels that you play are different, forcing you to, instead of memorizing level patterns, mastering the game mechanics in order to get the best scores you can.
And just to clarify, the roguelike comes from the Rogue video game from the 1980s.
Oh, dear.
The procedurally generated dungeon crawler with permadeath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just about to mention.
Yes, that's the other thing. Is also
a
lot of these series are also have permadeath because, I mean, you almost have to in a procedural. Otherwise, it literally is just a matter of trial and error trying to get the easy stuff.
The permadeath is, in my opinion, the core of the roguelike.
Yeah, and I suppose you could argue that Rogue Legacy kind of deviates from that a bit in that it isn't necessarily permadeath in that you have this, you know, continuing line, but it's like upon the death of your character, that is all for what you got out of them. Like, you're still able to get the blueprints for new weapons and armor, but you have that finite amount of money and experience to spend. And as soon as it's gone, and you feel it, because you're like, I spent so much time getting that, and it feels like it's been used so simply.
Well, one of the big differences, though, in a lot of games that just kind of implement permadeath and procedural generation is that they have like some kind of experience that you still take with you past your run. So each run still is building up towards something instead of just being a totally different game or totally different attempt at the game. So a lot of people have been taking to calling them roguelites.
Yes.
Right.
I do agree with
but
this.
it's the focus on the repetition.
Common example.
Go ahead, Zach.
I think for me, my common example usually is Spelunky. That's been one of the main ones I've played.
I haven't played that in a while, but
Yeah,
I'd definitely say it's a good example.
Well, I've been playing Crypt of the Necrodancer a lot recently, which has been really enjoyable, and a lot of that is because you play the game in just like really short little bursts. You know, you can sit down there and just keep playing it a lot, but the games are really quick, as is the action. But just like other games I was talking about, when you die, there's a tendency to just get right back in it quickly, and you want to keep on pressing the button because you don't know what's going to happen next, and that element of the procedurally generated content keeps you coming back because it's going to be another quick little shot. You don't know what's going to happen again. So it's kind of that element of luck integrated also with your growing skills.
Oh, let's see. I'm trying to think of other examples.
I don't play that much. I don't actually play that many of them, to be honest. Like, I'm trying to remember.
I haven't either.
I've played.
I've been playing one recently.
Playing what, Dan?
Mm-hmm. I've been playing also Heavy Bullets recently, which has been pretty great.
Yes.
Yeah, really enjoyable. Again, I like it for a lot of the same reasons. It's a shooter that kind of focuses more on survival than it does on action. A lot of the enemy encounters are really simple, and a lot of their actions are projected, and generally they have some kind of unique little like sound effect to signify that you're going to be like in danger or something like that. So instead of like your Quake style or your Call of Duty style shooter, it's more of a getting in touch with those little nuances and those little alerts to try and keep running. But every time you die, you can bank some of your money so that you can take it out of an ATM later. So it again has that kind of element of every time you run through the game, there's a little bit of something building up, as is your capacities to quickly run through levels and become familiar with the game itself.
Mm-hmm. I suppose the only other thing that I could think of at the moment is Risk of Rain, and
it's pretty great.
I don't know, I mean, I had pretty limited experience with it, but what I had, it was definitely what we've been talking about, where it is that accumulating style. I'd say it probably goes with the permadeath a little bit more, though, because if I recall correctly, I may be recalling wrong, when you died, you lost everything that you got, so it was just you keep going. Yep.
If I may clarify on the Risk of Rain, as you played the game, you could unlock certain characters by doing certain things, and unlock different drops that appear in the crates that you can acquire.
But you had to.
But still, you lost.
I remember.
Yeah. Still, you lost all your money, everything. And another thing that I loved about the game is, sorry, let me restart.
Go ahead.
Another thing that I loved about that game is the way that the difficulty ramps up over time, which was quite a cool mechanic.
Yeah, and literally over time, instead of like as you access new levels, it gets harder, and that's true. But literally, like as you're wading through the level, it starts getting more difficult. So it forces you to make some kind of progress while you're playing it.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate
every moment you're playing it.
Yeah, I appreciated that because like it kind of negates that level continuance where you can still be on that first level but you'll have taken so long that it decides to ramp it up against you, and you'll say, okay, is the next level going to be this hard if you actually complete it? You find out it's not, at least not automatically, but it does. It's nice to have that sort of system of reward for being quick, but you can also be thorough.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, before we move on, I think we're going to take a brief intermission here real quick. I've got one more gaming difficult topic I want to cover real quick, and then we're going to announce our topic for next week and our curation project. So we will resume in about 10 minutes.
All right.